The rain had stopped an hour ago, but the marshlands of Vega 7 still smelled like rot and rust. Jack Carter moved through the tall grass with careful steps, his boots sinking into the soft ground with each movement. He was 53 years old, and his knees reminded him of that fact every single day. 20 years ago, he had been a soldier. He had fought in the human war, watched good men die on frozen moons and burning deserts, and somehow survived it all. Now he was just a salvager, picking through the bones of abandoned alien facilities for anything he could sell. It was not a glamorous life, but it was quiet, and after everything he had seen, Jack valued quiet more than gold. The facility ahead had been built by a species of dragon-like aliens who had been enemies of humanity for as long as anyone could remember. The war between their empires had ended in a cold truce 15 years ago, but neither side trusted the other. They considered humans to be vermin. Humans considered them to be arrogant monsters. Jack did not care much about politics. He just wanted to find some old tech, sell it, and buy enough food to last another month. He pushed through a wall of thick reeds and stopped. In front of him was a wide pool of dark mud, almost black in color, and lying in that mud were three bodies. Jack's hand moved to his sidearm out of instinct. He had learned long ago that anything unexpected was usually dangerous, but as he looked closer, he realized these were not soldiers or predators. They were women, dragon women. Their bodies were humanoid but covered in scales. The first one had scales the color of polished silver, and her hair was white like snow. The second had bronze scales that caught the weak sunlight, and her hair was the color of copper. The third was older, with scales as black as the mud she lay in, and streaks of gray running through her dark hair. All three of them were naked. All three of them were wounded. Jack could see deep cuts across their arms and legs. Their wings, large, leathery things that sprouted from their backs, were torn and broken. A strange glowing liquid seeped from their wounds, pale blue and shimmering like starlight. They were his enemies, the species that had killed thousands of human soldiers in battle. Jack should have walked away. Any sane person would have walked away. But he did not. He moved forward, his boots splashing through the shallow water at the edge of the mud pool. The silver-scaled woman was closest, and he reached down to check her pulse. Her skin was cold, but he could feel a faint heartbeat beneath his fingers. She was alive, barely. Jack grabbed her under the arms and began to pull. She was heavier than she looked, and the mud did not want to let her go. It sucked at her body like a living thing, making wet sounds as he dragged her towards solid ground. It took him 5 minutes to get her out. He laid her on a patch of dry grass and went back for the second one. The bronze-scaled woman stirred as he lifted her. Her eyes opened, bright gold like coins, and she looked at him with pure terror. "Easy," Jack said quietly. "I am not going to hurt you." She did not seem to understand, or maybe she did not believe him. Either way, she was too weak to fight. Her eyes closed again, and Jack carried her to lie beside the first one. The third woman, the black-scaled elder, had not moved at all. Jack waded deeper into the mud to reach her. The dark water came up to his waist, thick and warm in a way that made his skin crawl. He grabbed the old woman's arm and began to pull. That was when he felt something move beneath the surface. Jack froze. The mud around his legs shifted, not from his own movement but from something else, something underneath. He looked down and saw nothing but black water. Then a hand emerged. It rose slowly from the mud just a few feet from where the old dragon woman lay. But it was not a hand. It was massive, easily twice the size of Jack's own, with claws as long as kitchen knives. The skin was the color of tar, slick and wet, and it seemed to absorb the light rather than reflect it. The hand opened its fingers slowly, almost lazily, like a predator waking from a long sleep. Jack did not breathe. He did not move. Every instinct he had developed in 20 years of war screamed at him to run. But if he ran, he would have to leave the old woman behind. The arm continued to rise. A shoulder emerged, then a neck, then a head. The creature's face was something from a nightmare. No eyes, just smooth black skin stretched over a skull that was too long and too narrow. Its mouth split open horizontally, revealing rows of teeth that curved inward like hooks. It made a sound, not a roar or a growl, but something worse, a wet, rattling breath that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Jack grabbed the old woman and pulled with everything he had. The mud released her with a horrible sucking sound, and he fell backward, dragging her with him. The creature turned its eyeless face toward him. It could not see him, Jack realized, but it could sense him. It could feel his heartbeat, his fear, his warmth. It was hungry. Jack scrambled backward, dragging the unconscious woman across the wet grass. The creature pulled more of itself from the mud, a torso covered in that same tar-black skin, arms that bent in too many places, legs that ended in feet like a bird's talons. It was at least 8 feet tall, maybe 9, and it moved with a terrible, patient grace, like it knew there was no point in rushing, like it knew its prey could not escape. Jack reached the other 2 women and laid the elder beside them. His hand found his sidearm, and he pulled it free. The silver-scaled woman's eyes opened. She looked at the creature, and her face went pale with recognition and terror. As she whispered, Jack had never heard the word before, but he understood what it meant. This thing had been feeding on them, keeping them alive in the mud, draining them slowly, and now Jack had interrupted its meal. The creature's mouth opened wider, and it let out that rattling breath again. Jack raised his weapon and prepared to fight. Jack fired 3 times. The shots were loud in the quiet marsh, echoing across the water and reeds. Each bullet hit the creature square in the chest. It did not even flinch. The round sank into that tar-black skin and disappeared, like stones thrown into deep water. No blood, no wound, nothing. The creature tilted its head at him, almost curious, as if wondering why this small thing was making so much noise. Jack fired again and again. The magazine emptied and still stood there untouched. "Weapons cannot kill it," the silver-scaled woman said. Her voice was weak, barely more than a whisper, but Jack heard every word. "It is born from the void between stars. It has no true flesh, no true form." Jack ejected the empty magazine and slammed in a fresh one. "Then what can kill it?" "Fire," she said. "Light, it fears the burning." The creature took a step forward. The ground shook slightly under its weight and the mud rippled around its taloned feet. It was in no hurry. Why would it be? It had all the time in the world. Jack's mind raced. Fire. He did not have a flamethrower. He did not have incendiary grenades. All he had was his salvaging gear. Then he remembered. His plasma cutter. It was a tool, not a weapon. Salvagers used it to slice through starship hulls and cut apart old machinery. It burned at temperatures hot enough to melt steel. Would that be enough? Jack reached into his pack with one hand, keeping his gun raised with the other. His fingers found the familiar handle of the cutter, and he pulled it free. The bronze-scaled woman had opened her eyes now. She was watching him with those golden eyes, her face twisted in pain and confusion. The black-scaled elder remained unconscious, her breathing shallow and weak. "What are you doing?" the silver one asked. "Something stupid," Jack said. He dropped his useless gun and ignited the plasma cutter. A blade of blue-white fire sprang from the tip, hissing and crackling in the damp air. It was only about 2 feet long, meant for precision work, not combat. But it was fire, it was light. The stopped moving. For the first time, something like caution crossed that eyeless face. Its mouth closed slightly, and its body shifted backward by just an inch. It was afraid. Jack stepped forward, putting himself between the creature and the 3 wounded women. "Yeah," he said quietly. "You do not like this, do you?" The creature hissed, a sound like steam escaping from a cracked pipe. Its arms spread wide, claws flexing, and it began to circle to the left. Jack moved with it, keeping the plasma blade between them. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. The cutter felt light in his hand, but he knew the fuel cell was already half empty from his salvage work earlier that day. He had maybe 5 minutes of burn time, maybe less. The silver-scaled woman pushed herself up onto her elbows. "Human," she said, "why are you doing this?" It was a fair question. Jack did not have a good answer. "Because you needed help," he said, "and I was here." She stared at him like he had spoken in a language she did not understand. Maybe he had. They did not think of humans as people. They thought of humans as pests, as vermin, as things to be crushed and forgotten. They certainly did not think of humans as the kind of creatures who would risk their lives for strangers. They lunged without warning. Jack barely had time to react. He threw himself to the side, and those massive claws swept through the air where his head had been. He swung the plasma cutter in a wild arc, and the blade caught the creature's arm. The effect was immediate. The tar-black skin bubbled and smoked where the fire touched it, and they let out a shriek that made Jack's ears ring. It pulled back, cradling its wounded limb, and for a moment Jack thought he might actually have a chance. Then the wound began to heal. The bubbling skin smoothed over, the smoke faded, and within seconds the arm looked exactly as it had before. The creature's mouth split open in what might have been a smile. Jack's stomach dropped. "It regenerates," the bronze-scaled woman said. She had managed to sit up now, though her body was shaking with the effort. "As long as any part of it survives, it will heal. You must burn it completely." "With this," Jack held up the small plasma cutter, "I do not have enough fuel." "Then we will die here," the silver one said simply. Jack looked at her. She was not being dramatic. She was stating a fact, the way a soldier might report the weather. They were going to die, and she had accepted it. But Jack had not. He was a stubborn man. He always had been. His commanding officers had called it his worst quality. His ex-wife had agreed. But that stubbornness had kept him alive through 3 years of war, and he was not about to give up now. "You are," he said, "you breathe fire." The silver woman's eyes widened slightly. "We are too weak. That has been feeding on us for days. Our flames are nearly gone." "Nearly gone is not the same as completely gone." The bronze woman spoke up. "He is right. If we combine what remains of our fire, we might be able to produce a single burst." The one called looked at her companion, then at the unconscious elder, then back at Jack. "It would take time. Time we do not have." "I will get you the time," Jack said. She stared at him. "You cannot fight that thing alone." "Watch me." Jack turned back to face the creature had recovered from its wound and was watching him with renewed interest. It could sense his fear, he knew. It could taste his desperation. But it could not understand his determination. It did not know what humans were capable of when they had no other choice. Jack took a deep breath and raised the plasma cutter. "All right, ugly," he said. "Let us dance," came at him like a wave of darkness. Jack dove to the right, rolling through the wet grass as those massive claws tore through the space where he had been standing. He came up swinging, and the plasma blade left a smoking line across the creature's thigh. It screamed again, that terrible, rattling shriek, but it did not slow down. Its arm swept backward in a vicious arc, and Jack barely managed to duck beneath it. The wind from the blow ruffled his hair. He was too slow. He was too old. 20 years ago, he might have had a chance. Now his joints ached and his reflexes were half a second behind where they needed to be. But he kept moving anyway. Behind him, he could hear the 3 women speaking in their own language. Their voices were weak and strained, but there was something else in them now. Something that sounded almost like hope. Jack did not have time to think about that. They lunged again, and he threw himself backward, landing hard on his back in a pool of muddy water. The creature's claws sank into the ground inches from his face, close enough that he could smell it, a scent like burning plastic and rotting meat. He kicked out with both legs, catching the creature in its knee joint. It was like kicking a tree trunk. The did not budge, but the impact bought Jack enough time to roll away and scramble to his feet. His plasma cutter flickered. Jack looked at the fuel gauge on the handle. The indicator had dropped into the red zone. He had maybe 2 minutes of burn time left, maybe less. 2 minutes to keep a monster busy, while 3 wounded dragons tried to summon enough fire to kill it. It was not enough time. He knew it was not enough time. But what choice did he have? The circled him slowly, its eyeless head tracking his every movement. It was learning, Jack realized. It was figuring out how he moved where he was weak, when to strike. It was smart. That made everything worse. Jack feinted left, then lunged right, slashing at the creature's arm. The plasma blade bit deep, and the pulled back with another shriek. But even as Jack watched, the wound began to close. He could not hurt it faster than it could heal, not with this little fire, not by himself. "Human," the bronze-scaled woman called out. Her voice was stronger now, though still strained. "We need more time, has not woken yet. We cannot do this without her." That must be the black-scaled elder. Jack glanced back and saw the old woman still lying motionless on the grass. The other 2 were beside her, their hands pressed against her arms, their scales beginning to glow with a faint inner light. They were trying to wake her up, trying to share what little energy they had left. Jack turned back to the, "You heard the lady, we are not done yet." The creature tilted its head. Then it did something Jack had not expected. It spoke. "Human," the word came out wet and wrong, like someone speaking through a mouthful of mud. "Why do you fight? These are not your kind. They hate your kind. They would kill you if they were strong." Jack blinked. "You can talk." "I have eaten many minds." The creature's mouth split into that horrible smile again. "I know many words, many languages, many secrets." "Good for you. I know what you are. I have tasted human thoughts before. You are afraid. You are in pain. You know you cannot win." Jack did not answer. "Put down your little flame," the said. "Step aside. Let me finish my meal and I will let you go. You have no reason to die for creatures who despise you." For a moment, Jack actually considered it. The thing was right. They had been humanity's enemies for decades. They had killed thousands of human soldiers. They had destroyed human colonies. They had made it very clear that they considered humans to be beneath them. These 3 women would probably not even thank him if he saved them. They might even be disgusted that they owed their lives to a human. So why was he doing this? Jack thought about the question for about half a second. Then he charged. The clearly did not expect that. It reared back as Jack came at it screaming, the plasma cutter leaving a trail of blue fire in the air. He slashed once, twice, 3 times, each strike burning a line across that tar-black skin. The creature howled and swung wildly. One claw caught Jack across the ribs, tearing through his jacket and the flesh beneath. Pain exploded through his side, hot and sharp, but he did not stop. He could not stop. Another claw raked across his shoulder, spinning him around. Jack felt blood running down his arm, felt his grip on the plasma cutter growing slick. But he kept swinging, kept burning, kept fighting. "Why?" the demanded. Its voice had lost that calm, patient tone. Now it sounded almost frustrated. "Why do you not give up?" Jack spat blood onto the ground. "Because someone has to fight, someone has to stand. That is what humans do." He slashed again, and this time the blade caught the creature across its throat. The wound smoked and bubbled, and for a moment the staggered backward. Behind Jack a voice called out. It was weak, old, and rough with pain. But it was awake. The elder said, "Is awake, we are ready." Jack looked at the plasma cutter. The fuel gauge showed almost nothing. The flame was starting to dim. He looked at the, already healing from its wounds. He looked at the three dragon women behind him, their scales glowing brighter now, their hands raised toward him. "Then do it," Jack said. "I will get out of the way." The creature seemed to understand what was about to happen. It let out a roar and lunged at Jack, claws extended, mouth wide open. Jack threw himself to the side, and the world turned to fire. 3 streams of flame erupted from behind Jack, converging on the like rivers flowing into a single point. The fire was not like anything Jack had ever seen. It was not orange or red like normal flames. Fire was pale silver, almost white, cold and beautiful like moonlight given form. Burned with bronze and gold, her flames dancing and swirling like liquid metal. And the black-scaled elder, breathed fire the color of midnight dark purple shot through with veins of deep crimson. Together, the 3 streams twisted around each other, braiding into a single column of impossible heat that struck thee in the center of its chest. The creature did not scream this time. The sound it made was beyond screaming, a howl that seemed to come from somewhere else entirely, somewhere outside the normal world. Its body convulsed and twisted, that tar-black skin bubbling and melting like wax held too close to a candle. Jack pressed himself flat against the ground, feeling the heat wash over him in waves. His burns stung, his wounds throbbed, and every breath felt like swallowing broken glass. But he did not look away. He watched the die. The creature tried to run. Its legs gave out before it could take 2 steps. It tried to crawl, reaching toward the mud pool where it had hidden for so long. But the fire followed it, relentless and hungry, burning away everything it touched. The collapsed. Its arms stopped moving. Its terrible mouth opened one final time, but no sound came out. And then slowly, it began to turn to ash. The flames burned for another 30 seconds, maybe more. Jack lost track of time. When the fire finally faded, there was nothing left of the creature but a dark stain on the ground, already being washed away by the water seeping up from the marsh. Silence fell over the marshland. Jack lay there for a long moment, staring up at the gray sky. His body felt like it had been through a meat grinder. He could not feel his left arm anymore, and there was a worrying wetness spreading across his stomach. He turned his head and saw the 3 women. They had collapsed as well, whatever energy they had gathered now completely spent. Lay on her side, her silver scales dull and faded, had fallen backward, her golden eyes closed. The eldest was barely breathing. But they were alive. Jack let out a laugh that turned into a cough. Blood flecked his lips, but he did not care. They were alive. Slowly, painfully, he pushed himself up onto his elbows. The world spun around him, and for a moment he thought he might pass out. He forced himself to keep moving anyway. He crawled toward the women, dragging himself through the mud and grass. It took him what felt like hours to cover the short distance. His eyes opened as he reached her. Those silver eyes, so strange and inhuman, focused on his face. "You are hurt," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I have had worse," Jack lied. "No, you have not." She reached out with one clawed hand and touched the wound on his stomach. Her fingers came away red. "You are dying, human." Jack looked down at himself. She was right. The claw wound across his midsection was deeper than he had thought. He could see things through the torn flesh that he was pretty sure were supposed to stay inside. "Huh," he said, "that is not good." Stared at him. There was something in her expression that Jack could not read, confusion maybe or disbelief, perhaps both. "Why did you do this?" she asked. Jack thought about the question. It deserved a real answer, but his brain was getting foggy, and the words were hard to find. "Because you were in trouble," he said finally. "Because I could help, that is all. We have been at war with your kind for. I know. We have killed humans, many humans. We have burned your ships and destroyed your colonies. I know. His face twisted. Then why we are your enemies, you should hate us. Jack managed a weak smile. Maybe, but I looked at you lying there in that mud and I did not see enemies. I just saw 3 people who needed help. The dragon woman had no response to that. She simply stared at him, her silver eyes wide and uncomprehending. Stirred beside them. The old woman's eyes opened, dark purple, almost black, and she looked at Jack with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. You fought for us, she said. Her voice was rough like stone grinding against stone. You nearly died for us, for strangers, for enemies. Already covered that, Jack said. His vision was starting to blur at the edges. Not much of a mystery. Reached out and pressed her clawed hand against his wound. Jack hissed in pain, but she did not pull away. Be still, human, she commanded. I have some strength left, enough to keep you from dying at least. Jack felt warmth spread through his body, starting from where her hand touched him and radiating outward. The pain did not disappear, but it faded to something manageable. The bleeding slowed. Why? He asked, echoing his question from before. Looked at him with those ancient purple eyes. Because you showed us something today, something we did not believe was possible. What? That humans can be more than we thought, that perhaps we have been wrong about your kind. Jack wanted to laugh, but he did not have the energy. He let his head fall back against the grass and closed his eyes. Wake me up when you figure out what to do next, he mumbled. The last thing he heard before darkness took him was his voice, speaking into the other two. He did not understand the words, but somehow he knew they were not words of hatred. They were words of gratitude. Jack woke to the sound of machines humming. He opened his eyes slowly, blinking against soft blue light. He was lying on something comfortable, not a bed exactly, but close enough. The ceiling above him was curved and smooth, made of a dark metal he did not recognize. He was not on Vega 7 anymore. Jack tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through his midsection, and he fell back with a grunt. His hands moved to his stomach, expecting to find torn flesh and exposed organs. Instead, he found smooth bandages and the faint warmth of healing technology working beneath them. You should not move yet. Jack turned his head, sat beside him in a chair that looked like it had been grown rather than built. Her silver scales had regained some of their shine, and her torn wings were wrapped in some kind of medical mesh. She looked tired but alive. Where am I? Jack asked. His voice came out rough like he had been gargling sand. A medical ship, the Morning Star, watched him with those silver eyes. After you lost consciousness, I activated my emergency beacon. A patrol vessel found us within hours. Jack processed that information. A ship. He was on an enemy vessel, surrounded by people who had been trying to kill his kind for decades. He should have been terrified, but looking at his face, all he felt was a strange kind of peace. The others, he asked, and they are recovering. Exhausted herself keeping you alive until help arrived. She has been sleeping for 2 days. 2 days, Jack blinked. How long was I out? 3 days. Jack let out a low whistle. He had been unconscious for 3 days on an enemy ship, completely helpless, and they had not killed him. They had healed him instead. The universe made no sense sometimes. Seemed to read his thoughts. You are confused. A little. You expected us to let you die, or to kill you ourselves. The thought crossed my mind. Was quiet for a moment. Her clawed fingers curled around the armrest of her chair, and she looked away from him. I have reported what happened to the High Council, she said. All of it. How you found us, how you fought how you nearly died protecting us. Jack felt his stomach tighten, and what did they say? They did not believe me at first. Neither did's family or a human risking his life for it sounded like a lie, like propaganda from the enemy. But then spoke, turned back to face him. Is old human, very old. She has seen 3 wars with your kind. She has killed more humans than she can count. And she told the council that in all her years she had never seen anything like what you did. Jack did not know what to say to that. The council has made a decision, continued. They wish to honor you, to name you Flame Brother. Flame Brother. It is a title we give to those who have proven themselves worthy of standing beside who have shared in our fire and our pain. Paused. It has never been given to a non before, not in 10,000 years of our history. Jack stared at her. You are joking. I am not. I am just a salvager, a nobody. I did not do anything special. His eyes hardened. You stood between us and death with nothing but a cutting tool. You bled for us. You were prepared to die for us. Do not tell me that was nothing special. Jack opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. He did not have the words. The door to the medical chamber slid open and walked in. The bronze-scaled woman looked much better than she had in the marsh. Her scales gleamed, and her golden eyes were bright and alert. Behind her came, moving slowly but steadily, her black scales catching the blue light. He is awake, said. She smiled, showing teeth that were slightly too sharp. Good. I was getting tired of watching him sleep. You were watching me sleep. We have been taking turns, said. Her voice was still rough, still ancient. We did not want you to wake alone. It seemed wrong after everything. Jack looked at the 3 of them, the silver, the bronze, and the black, 3 dragon women who should have been his enemies, 3 strangers he had risked everything to save. There is something else, said, something you should know. Jack raised an eyebrow. More surprises. The council has agreed to open diplomatic channels with the human government. They wish to discuss the possibility of peace. For a moment Jack was certain he had misheard. Peace with humans. What you did has made them question many things. If one human can show such courage and compassion, perhaps there are others. Perhaps the war between our peoples does not have to continue. Jack felt something shift in his chest. He had spent years trying to forget the war, trying to put the violence and death behind him. And now, somehow, he had become the reason it might finally end. That is a lot of pressure to put on one old salvager, he said. Laughed, you will get used to it. Moved closer and sat on the edge of his bed. Her ancient eyes studied his face with an intensity that made him want to look away. You asked me why I saved you, she said. In the marsh when I was keeping you from dying. Do you remember? Jack nodded. I saved you because you showed us what humans truly are. Not vermin, not monsters, but people. Complicated, stubborn, foolish people who will fight impossible battles for strangers they have never met. She reached out and placed her clawed hand on his shoulder. Now we wish to understand you, all of you. Jack looked at the 3 women surrounding him, his enemies who had become something else, something he did not have a word for yet. I am not sure I understand myself most days, he admitted. Smiled a real smile, warm and almost gentle. Then we will figure it out together. Outside the medical chamber, the stars stretched on forever. Somewhere out there, humans were beginning to talk instead of fight. Somewhere out there, a new future was being born. And it had all started because one tired veteran could not walk away from people in need. Word spread across the galaxy in the weeks that followed. The story of the human who saved 3 dragons with nothing but fire and stubbornness. The story of Jack Carter, Flame Brother, bridge between worlds. Humanity, the whisper said, was not to be underestimated. Jack just shrugged when he heard that. He had only done what anyone would do. But deep down, he knew that was not quite true, and maybe that was the point.